Welcome to the Co-Creators podcast. I'm Chloe Anderson.
And I'm Lakita Williams, and we help leaders and organizations build the future of work. Hello, co-creators. Welcome back to another episode of the Co-Creators podcast. We are so excited to be in conversation. It's December already, Chloe. I can't quite believe how
How,
fast the year has gone.
right? How has it been the longest year ever? And
I know, and
also in
the
December.
fast. That's so real. And we've been talking a lot about paradox. So that kind of fits into that theme as well.
Yeah, yeah.
We are coming to you all today with the question of how do I define success as we're thinking about the past year. We love to talk about client wins. We love to talk about successes with clients, and we often have a hard time sometimes celebrating our wins. So it's a really intentional practice. But it's easy to get caught up in, what did I do at the beginning of the year? What did I say I was going to do? Or what did I say my word of the year was going to be?
Yes.
And did that happen within the past 12 months? And so we're looking at like sometimes external validations for what success could be instead of defining it for ourselves.
Yes. And I think this comes up often in
Mm.
client conversations too, on both the macro, like if we think about the year as kind of the macro level,
Yeah.
and then, months, weeks, days as more of the micro level, it comes up across the board, right?
Yeah.
In terms of like you have some idea of what success looks like based on any number of factors, right?
Mhm.
External markers, what you've been told you should be aiming for, what you've defined as your KPIs, right? There's all these different ways that we can measure success. And we're not always really intentional and thoughtful about what does success actually look like for me, right? For me
Yeah.
as an individual, for me as a business, maybe it's a business owner in my
Or a leader.
role, like whatever that looks like, right? So, how do we do that? And we work with clients on this all the time in terms
Hmm.
of figuring out what that looks like. So, Lakita, as you're thinking about, we're coming into December, which
Yeah.
is a great time for reflection. We always love it, especially getting ready for the new year and the goals that we're going to set for that year, the strategy we're going to set as we're going into December. How do you think about measuring success for the year?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the first things I think that is really, really helpful is to look at what you outlined initially, because what'll happen is if we start comparing ourselves to external markers of success, we'll say, "Why didn't I do the thing that this person achieved? Why didn't I hire 5 additional employees? Why didn't we make 3 million?" Right? So let's first get grounded in what were your actual goals and KPIs, and did you meet them? More often than not, we do, but we get thrown off because we're comparing our great to someone else's timeline or success in comparison. So get an alignment there. And then if you find you didn't reach them, right, ask yourself, it's a reflection piece of, was this ambitious, right? Like, was this a really ambitious goal? We sometimes overestimate what we can do in a year, underestimate what we can do in 5 or 10. But ask myself, am I like on my way? And how can we acknowledge and accept that as a success?
As you were talking about, looking at past goals, what are your what did you set out to do? What does that look like? The other thing that came up for me, and we did this year, is we got to a certain point and there was a pivot, right?
Yeah,
Like there was
yeah.
a pivot that we had, and it was based on a number of different factors. And so, like, if you think about where you started, and this is a call out around like quarterly planning and
Yeah,
connecting with those plans,
yeah.
is did something shift and did you document that shift? Because lots of
Yes.
times things will shift and we don't always document it. So it's really easy to look back and be like, I didn't do this thing without acknowledging, okay, and I did these other five
Hmm.
things that were the right thing for me and my
They were
business
the
and
right
my
call.
job or whatever that looks like.
I
Yeah.
100% agree with that. And I think in doing that, it is the piece about acknowledging ourselves, our leadership, and celebrating the judgment that you had to make that decision. I think what you're highlighting here too is also about giving ourselves a level of grace that we don't do, right? It's like, hey, if I didn't meet some success metric, whether it was mine or externally, what can I celebrate that I achieved? And then also, did I have something else going on, right? Did we need to pivot? Did I have something going on personally? And therefore, I made an adjustment. I made a call. That was what was in alignment for me. So sometimes success looks like, you know what? I showed up for the
Yeah.
team and I originally didn't feel like or know that I could do that. Success is I made it through this year and it was a really challenging time for our team or our organization. And that is enough.
And it's making me think of, the meme that floats around I mean, I love it because it really is a great thought. Is like you have no idea the battles someone's fighting,
Yeah.
right? Like
Hmm.
some
Hmm.
variation of that. Um, you, that another reason why we have to define success for
Yeah.
ourselves because
Hmm.
no one, if we're letting external markers be our definition of success, those external markers don't know what has happened in your life over the course of a year. They don't, right? They don't have that awareness. And so we've got to define it for ourselves. The other thing I love about reflecting and looking back on the goals you set and where you got to is one of the things that we will see in goal setting at times is a focus only on output goals without input goals.
Yeah. Oh, I
And
love that.
so this is a great opportunity to be able to look back, especially as we're going into the next year and think about, did I set enough input goals? And
Yeah.
what I mean by input goals is goals where it's you're in full control of what you do, right? You're in
Hmm.
full control of the input. If I say I'm going to send out a newsletter every week, I'm in full control of that. Now, the goal of that newsletter and what my hope in terms of what I'm doing with that newsletter, there's an output goal there. And we
Hmm.
don't want to ignore output goals. They're important, right? They give us a sense of our inputs leading to the
Yeah.
outputs that we
Yeah.
want. And input goals are so helpful and such a great way to define success in your year, in the actions you take, because you are in control of those in terms
Hmm.
of external factors. And again, like there are external factors that can get in the way of input goals, right? If I have a goal to exercise every day and then I get sick, okay, well,
Yeah, that
there's an
changes the
adjustment I got
inputs.
to make.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. I agree with that. And I think I love this comparison between inputs, outputs. It reminds me of span of control, which we talk about as well. Like what is accessible to me to do and what's not. Like what do I have control over and what don't I have control over? Of course, if we do all the inputs and we're not seeing the outputs, then we know, hey, I need to adjust strategy.
Yep.
But I think to your point, we might lay out, I want to achieve whatever goal for the end of the year. I want our team to be performing at this level, but I didn't quite set goals that have to do with the inputs. What are the steps that it would take to have our team be able to perform at the next highest level?
And that goes right back to what you were saying around like we overestimate what we can do in a year and we underestimate what we can do in 5 years or 10 years. When you get those input goals, those success metrics around inputs aligned with your output goals, you have a much more realistic picture of what you
Yeah.
can actually do,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah. And so in the process of defining success for yourself, I think we outlined, hey, look at what you set out to do so you're not comparing to externally.
We talked about that, looking back at what we've done. We talked about input versus output. We talked about potential pivots that you needed to make.
Hmm.
And as we're thinking about how we measure success for ourselves, and especially right now, and I'm just going to name, we got a lot of people out in the job market looking for
Yes.
roles, right?
Mhm.
And the success metric for a job search, pretty straightforward, getting a job, right? Like that's a
Yeah.
pretty clear. And we have got to define that in many ways, right? Like
What?
it
Yes.
has to be many ways because if your success metric is just, oh, I got a job or I don't have a job, there's something psychologically that happens to us when we don't meet those goals, right? There's some cortisol that comes in, there's lots of things. We need to make sure that we're thinking about success more broadly in that input goal and output goal. And to your point, I think what you were saying, like if what we're doing for inputs isn't getting us to the output, okay, then we adjust those
Which,
input
yeah.
goals. But we've got to figure out what does success look like for us as we're
Mhm.
going down that path. And even using the job search example, just getting a job probably actually isn't the right metric. Getting a job you want at a company that you want to be at, doing something you want to do, right? You get specific with what success looks like. And this is actually making me think, Lakita, we do so much visioning with our
Hmm.
clients,
Hmm.
and success metrics are a form of vision, right?
Oh
Like
yeah,
goal setting
100%.
is 100% a form of vision. And the more specific we get with it, the more connected we are to it.
Yeah,
So it's that vision of here's the job I want, right? Like it's
yeah.
not just a job. There is
The
an
job.
actual, there's the job. Thank you. Yes, there's
Yeah,
the job
I
for
love
sure.
it. Yeah, I think it's a powerful piece. Like a one of the many, many, many episodes back, we talked about manifestation, and I think this aligns with that so much, right? Because whether you believe in the science or whether you believe in it spiritually, the answer is the same. What we focus on happens, right? And so if we are have a lot of clarity about what are the inputs that we want to put in, what goals are we aiming for, and being really, I guess bold is the answer that I want to give. Was you described, hey, go for the job that you want, right? I'm working with a client now who's in the process of finding their next right step, and it was like, hey, I received an offer and I turned that offer down because it wasn't what I was looking for. It wasn't in alignment, and that takes a lot of courage, especially in the midst. And not everyone can do that from a financial perspective. Um,
100%.
but that level of clarity about what do I want to do? What are the inputs? What are the steps that I'm taking to get the role that I want to get? That is enough of success. So it's, December 2nd, might not have an offer by December 31st, but feeling that metric of success will be, I know that I did all the inputs to pursue the type of role that I'm looking for. And if I need to update the strategy, we will. But
Yep.
for now, that is what success looks like for me.
Um, as I was thinking about this topic and what we're going to discuss too, I just thought about December and all
Mm-hmm.
the expectations that we
Mm-hmm.
have outside of work
Mm-hmm.
in many cases, but even at work with what we're trying to get accomplished before the end of the year. And this is a great opportunity to practice on a micro level, like
Mm-hmm.
defining success for yourself. So even just going to like my Thanksgiving dinner, defining it and communicating it, right? Like I had a vision in my brain around like, here's what I want this to look like. I did not communicate that. And there were a few little hiccups along the way, right? And defining success, we need to think about what does success look like? Let's say for December, right? Getting
Yeah.
through December. Who are you communicating that to? Who's in partnership with you? Because we're always in partnership, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who can help you with that? But this is a great opportunity to not just like go, okay, my goal is to get through the end of the year, which I think for many of us, that is the goal. But like, how can we get through the end of the year and feel good about it? Like, what does
Yeah.
that look like?
What is success in that context?
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So, good opportunity to just practice, right? To put some things into practice on the more micro level. But going back to where we started for the year, right? Defining success. We've reviewed our goals. We have an opportunity to reflect on what helped me get to these goals. Did the goals change? What got in the way if I didn't meet some of these goals? And did I define success in a way that makes sense for next year, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
as I'm thinking about going into 2026, how do I want to define success differently? Did I look too externally? Did I not look externally enough? Because there are some markers that are helpful to look at externally in terms of your business growth or your professional growth, right? To see those pieces, but making sure that you've got the information you need as you're defining success for yourself, as you're reflecting on this past year, and as you're looking at the year ahead. What does success look like for you?
Absolutely. I love this. And I think this is, if you haven't done this yet, this week is a great time to do that. And no matter what ends up being written on that paper, celebrate and acknowledge yourself, right? You made it from there to here. And a lot of barriers have come up, a lot of challenges have come up, both externally and likely internally. And so just acknowledging who you had to be to make that happen, and celebrating the success no matter where you are, no matter what the outcome of your list and all the things are. And in our next session, we're going to talk to you about a little bit of looking ahead. We have another, we'll be celebrating like some of our biggest reads and podcast episodes for the year, which I am so excited about. And also just give you a preview and maybe some things that you can do as you prepare to go into the year ahead. And we're excited to bring that your way as well.
Yes, and those books and those podcast episodes and articles that we share many of them will likely be helpful as you're thinking about your year ahead, what you want to do, resetting, if there's some resetting that needs to be done, celebrating those wins, right? Just all of those pieces that really help to set us up for success as
Yeah,
we move forward.
totally. Well, as always, thank you all for joining us for the pod today. And thank you for your leadership.
We hope today's conversation gave you something to think about and, more importantly, something you can use. If this episode resonated with you, we'd love for you to share it with another leader, entrepreneur, or friend who might benefit from hearing it. And for additional resources, frameworks, and tools related to our topic, please be sure to subscribe to our newsletter at CoCreateWork.com. And of course, if you have any question you'd like us to explore in a future episode, we would love to do that. So please send it to podcast@CoCreateWork.com. As always, thank you for being here and thank you for your leadership.